All right, welcome everyone. Today I am glad to be joined by Kristina Romero, who has done an endless amount of cool things. And I know that now she is working on business training and coaching and consulting. So for starters, welcome, Kristina. Let's start out here. Who is Kristina Romero and what does she do?
I'm not sure I know the answer to the question. Thanks, Alan. It's lovely to be here. I heard once long ago someone mentioned the term multi-passionate. I like that term. I'm definitely multi-passionate. I do quite a bit of things, all focused. If I found a through line, all focused on building community at this point in my life. That seems to be something I am doing, bringing people together. That seems to be the through line of what I've been doing in my different projects. But yeah, I have a very interesting past with coming from Hollywood, kind of creative background, but been in the whole web world for, I guess, 14 years now, maybe longer, building websites, helping people learn how to run web agencies and build a business. So lots of different things.
Yeah, super cool. I first heard about you, I guess, on Michael Killen's channel, Sell Your Service. Then I just dove in and yeah.
He's a great friend.
Yeah. And then that's where I heard about the recurring revenue retreat and a bunch of stuff that we'll talk more about later. Can you let me know a little bit about the agencies that you have already started and sold, and just a little bit about how all that happened?
Oh, I think it was like most people, teaching myself how to build websites, and then got a little bit better at running a business. I got it to the point where it had built quite a bit of recurring revenue. So it was definitely a good asset at the time to sell. At the same time that I was building my coaching program in the training for web professionals. So felt like I was kind of riding two horses, and I needed to let one go, also juggling a lot of really cool side projects I wanted to explore. So I made the decision to sell the agency of that point, 11 years. It was right when COVID hit. So the timing was really good because I was having 4 children at home during COVID and having to homeschool them. So the timing worked out really perfectly. And then I've been able to grow WP Care Market now, which provides training for website professionals and a directory to connect the web pro with the business owner for ongoing website care. I'm helping GoDaddy build an academy on their end, writing a book for web professionals in addition to the side projects that I'm doing for lots of other community types of things, which you mentioned, recurring revenue retreat, where we bring a lot of digital agencies that want to create more recurring revenue together in Walt Disney World, which is a better place than that, with speakers and really cool breakout sessions. So that is where I am right now and what I've done in the last couple of years, and it's been really fun.
Oh, super cool. So you sold one agency, correct?
That's right. I sold that agency in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was listening to some of your other interviews, actually, and I heard that you mentioned how you found your niche, how it doesn't always make sense to dive right in. On one hand, everybody hates shiny object syndrome. On the other hand, you kind of need to do it to find your way, because you don't want to pick a niche too early or feel too committed to something. So could you just talk a little bit about that, choosing your niche versus shiny object syndrome versus how you found your own niches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for business owners, it's really easy to look at what other people are doing and not actually seeing that it's a snippet in a long journey. And so when we're on social media, we're listening to podcasts or YouTube videos or listening to other people, we're not getting that there is a trajectory there, that someone started one place and they made decisions and they pivoted and they kind of got to new places and such. And so there's this kind of pressure to say, well, I need to grow, and that person said to niche, so I'm going to niche. It depends on where you are in that journey and your trajectory as a business. If you're just starting out, you really kind of don't know what you like to do and where you're skilled. You may not have had a lot of experience with different types of websites, different types of clients. So you're not going to have the information there in order to dive in and niche down. successfully. I think that there's a lot of people that maybe come from a background where they maybe worked for another company. And in that capacity, they may have experience to kind of break out into their business, being brand new and go right towards restaurant websites, whatever it is, because that's who they're a little bit of the clients that they worked with that they really loved. So it really is where you are in that journey and how decisive you are in terms of what you do well and who you like to serve. But there's a lot of listening that's involved in niching, and sometimes it takes time to follow what people are saying in those communities that you're interested in and what their needs are. And so there's some growth that needs to happen there for you to say, I'm going to be the right person for this type of website, for this type of client. It just isn't as cut and dry, I think, as it feels like when people are out there and they're in Facebook groups and they're watching things. Niching can be, I always say, a person, place, or thing, or a combination of all of them. So it can be the type of person like fitness coaches. It could be type of thing like membership websites. And it could be a type of place like Los Angeles. Or you can combine them all together and it's fitness coaches with membership websites in Los Angeles, So it's like, it can be as broad or as specific as I think fits the person. I think what we benefit from with niching is that if you're saying this is what I'm going to do well, membership websites, you're not as split to learning everything you need to know to serve that community. So you are up to date on every type of membership platform. You're up to date on what you would need and the processes, and you're less stressed because you're like, this is the process. This is what we need for membership websites. This is my wheelhouse. And you become an expert in that area. And so as you go out, you're like, okay, fitness coaches, they're my niche. But then as you kind of get sick of those types of clients, you don't have to pivot too far, right? You're like, there's a through line between them educating in person and online. So I'm going to pivot to educators that have classes in person and online. And so you take something that may be too narrow and you're like, oh, this is starting to get really repetitive. And I'm, the list is not as many to reach out to or whatever. And you start to broaden it a little bit, and then you may shrink it down a little bit, and then you may broaden it again. So you see this evolution over time of you sort of figuring things out and pivoting. But the idea behind a niche stays the same, that you can't split yourself all across different types of websites and different types of clients. You have to kind of find something to specialize in. I'll speak to where we ended up niching right before we sold, was really living in that e-learning space. Because I was doing e-learning, I was building the platform for my coaching and my courses. And I was like, I've spent so much time figuring out what to do over here. So the last couple of years of our agency was dealing with, people who had e-learning environments and coaches or schools and things like that.
I know some people say, like, there are super successful people who niche down right away, super specific, and there are other super successful people who stayed broad. So, of course, there's no answer.
I think people who are staying broad do have a niche. It's just they don't think they have a niche. So, I think when people say they're staying broad, well, they're screening clients. So they're obviously choosing to work with certain people and certain websites if they've been in the business, for a while, right? Not obviously in the beginning, you're kind of taking whatever comes your way so you can build that portfolio. But certainly I think even people who think they don't have a niche, I bet if we started talking to them, we would find that they did end up having a criteria that they selected clients off of.
Yeah, true. You can't take everybody. So yeah, I guess they must have some type of filtering process. That's definitely fair. So I've heard you talk before about your traffic generation, your preferred traffic generation methods. I know that you mentioned in your training and some other places that some preferred methods are asking your previous clients, adding it onto their package or getting referrals from clients. But I also heard you talk about, let's just say, cold outreach. So yes, it does tend to receive the most no's or the most inconvenience for the outreacher, I should say, the most time consuming. But can you just talk a little bit more about your preferred traffic channels and especially a little bit more about how you have gone about cold outreach in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, this kind of comes down to personality and how you run your business and what you prefer. So thinking that everybody's the same, it kind of does a disservice when having this conversation, because there's people who are really, really great at picking up a phone and talking to people and engaging them. And then there's other people who that's not their strong suit, or that's not what they prefer. It's not their style. Maybe comes off a little less genuine to them or less authentic. Whereas for someone else, that is authentic and that is genuine to them. So we have to think about like people too, and where they feel most comfortable, because you're going to go out and you're going to do things repeatedly where you feel most comfortable. For me, I felt most comfortable with really focusing on my existing list of clients and finding ways to continue to nurture that relationship, find more services to offer them, to encourage referrals from them. And that's truly where we grew exponentially, like looking at it that way. Whenever I tried cold outreach in the ways of like traditional lead generation, it just, like for my agency, it was always a little bit awkward because I felt the referrals was going so well. So I focused more on that. However, I do know people who have done outreach really successful, and I learned a lot of techniques from them, and I acquired like a lot of templates that they used and the way that they did things. Just for my time, we were growing with referral based. So it made no sense for me to go out and try cold outreach because we were filling our books and our projects with everything we needed. I always say cold outreach should be done like a conversation. So it should be done as if you're talking to that person at a party. Don't make it awkward. Like, don't run into the room and start shouting like, I'm here, I can make you a website. So I always think like, you want to get to know people, what their needs are, how you can help them. And if you were in a room with someone, how would you approach that conversation? What would it look like? I always say, especially local, I think cold outreach works really, really well local. So when you're headed out to the local farmers market and you're getting to know people, or you are going into restaurants or to shops, or you're going to local business, like commerce groups, all of those types of things, that's where I think cold outreach works really well, staying local.
So I know you mentioned those were agency traffic methods. How are you finding people now for WP Care Market, for training and stuff like that? Is that still referral based, or how do people find you now?
So the best way that I found in growing a coaching program or the courses and course traffic and getting people to find out who you are and what you're doing is, a variety of ways. But one in particular is really joint venture partnerships. That has truly been where the growth for my training program has come from. Really connecting with someone else who has a list of people who would be interested in your course content, and forming like a positive relationship where you can help them and they can help you. That has been by far the best means of traffic. And then reaching out to that list to provide training to that list, whether it's a webinar or some kind of small course or a resource or a download or a sale on top of that. And then that list being exposed to your training and saying, okay, that's interesting. I'll move forward and see what this person has to say. So joint venture partnerships have been hands down the fastest way, I feel, to like grow a lot of a coaching program. Going out there and just really trying to take some of your content that you know is going to help people and attack it from that angle, not trying to hold things back, but really trying to be, this is what people know and I'm going to make it available to them, and then if they want to know more, they'll buy the course. Having that attitude of kind of giving and abundance and helpfulness really, I think, has been a key for the training program growing, because I just there's not a sleaziness to it in that respect. It's not salesy. I'm just really trying to put out content that will help, and the rest of the content obviously is behind a paywall. And so if people find it helpful, then they know whatever they get behind the paywall will also help them.
Yeah, and I guess joint ventures are kind of indirect referral traffic. Yeah, just kind of indirectly, which is good. I totally think that referral traffic is the best traffic. Nothing against the other. Well, I guess any traffic method is good if you do it right. But
yeah, I think the problem we have with like traditional ads with coaching programs is that there's a long time for someone to get to know, like, and trust you. There's like I could probably look at my CRM and see people who signed up and then how long it took them to buy a course. And sometimes it's over a year of them being repeatedly exposed to what you're doing. So ads don't convert for coaching programs, I think, in the same way that a product would. So they really have to kind of know the conversation you're having and trust that conversation. So I tried ads and definitely didn't see the type of return from that.
Let's go back to the retreat, actually. So that is a super interesting topic for me, actually, just the recurring revenue model as a whole. So how did you come upon that, and how did the retreat come about? So I know that's kind of a two-parter question. What's your connection to the recurring revenue and the retreat?
Yes. All right. Recurring revenue is everything for my agency. It's everything right now for my WP Care Market that has recurring revenue in it, with subscriptions. It was what took me from being like crazed, stressed out business owner to having that predictable income, but also that like list of people who were investing in me. So I was investing in them to provide them, whether it was website care or now with WP Care Market, continual training. So that's really what can make your self-employed business predictable. It just changed night and day from what my life looked like before and after. It didn't even have to be a huge monetary amount, although it was enough to sustain a living wage. It just made my brain feel better. So I love recurring revenue, especially around website care is what I talk about. I talk about website care all the time. So I was sitting down with a friend of mine, Robert Simmons, who owns Hatman Marketing, and we were talking about the different the conferences we had been to and meetups and different types of things like that. And we said, there's nothing for recurring revenue. There's just nothing that's about, especially digital agencies, these types of online businesses that are looking to create recurring revenue in this space. There's nothing where it's just specific to that. And that's all we want to do. It's all we want to grow. And then our twofold process to that was we didn't really feel that there was a conference out there that felt really welcoming for someone to bring their families. Because if you own your own business, you're not really, you have an opportunity when you go to a conference to use it as a tax write-off and double it as a vacation and bring your family along. And there wasn't anything that we felt was sort of like a family-friendly atmosphere to that, where people could use it as a tax write-off to come and go to the conference and still have a vacation with family, because that's kind of what we have to do when we run our own business, right? We're constantly balancing all of that. So that's where Robert Simmons is. He lives in Orlando. He's familiar with Walt Disney World. He's like, let's do it at Walt Disney World. I was like, it's a great idea. So the first one was in 2019, and we just featured a lot of people in the web agency space who had created digital products or had recurring revenue. Some SaaS models who had created software that was on a recurring revenue model, and some course training providers, course creators that had recurring structure, learning from their mistakes, learning from the things that they had to teach. And then we had masterminds where people could get together, workshop that idea that they had, hear from others. And what we saw when we ran it the first time was like, oh, this is like really cool, because both Robert and I had this idea of like, we don't want the sponsors and the speakers and the attendees to all feel like there's a hierarchy structure. We're all kind of in the same boat. Like, we're all trying to build recurring revenue. So there was this like no ego that kind of emerged from this event. So it was really unique. And everyone who went there was like, this is really cool. We've never been to anything like this before. So we moved forward with the idea of like a no ego event that, we have everyone's in the same room, sponsors, speakers, attendees, everyone's kind of on the same level. We eat together, we have events, we network, and it becomes almost network heavy in that way. And sponsors become friends with attendees and speakers become friends with sponsors. It's crazy. So that's what ended up emerging out of the recurring revenue retreat. It has a really good spirit to it. It's very, like, we try to keep it small, no more than like 100 attendees. We want to keep that intimate feel of that so people can get to know each other. And it's gotten a reputation. So this little thing that we do in Walt Disney World every year has gotten this fun little reputation in our circles. And those who know about it. And so we get a lot of people being like, I never heard about this before. So we're not, we like keeping it small. And if people find out and they want to come join the party, it's been really fun. So we're doing our third year this year in November. And we have some spots still available. Exactly. And we don't lose any money, which is like the number one victory of it all. So that's kind of how we feel. Like, we're not really trying to make a big profit off of it. We just want to make our costs back and everybody have a good time.
Let's go a little well, I don't want to say negative, but I know you said you've been at this for more than 10 years. What have been some of the biggest obstacles that have gotten in your way? So I know you've worked with, agencies and running events and consulting. I know you've been involved in a lot of different arenas. But throughout your path, what have been some of your biggest roadblocks?
As far as biggest roadblocks go, probably myself. Getting in the way of myself. I think a lot of people will relate to that. The hustle culture thing. So I think that hustle culture sort of swallowed me up um, halfway through, running an agency, and this idea that I needed to do so much and I needed to be where the next guy was, and working really hard. And at that time, I had two small kids, one on the way. That really was tough. So breaking out of the mindset of that was my biggest roadblock, was being okay with where I was and being where I was right now, and kind of creating, looking forward to what I wanted my life to look like, and work my way backwards. So I had someone else telling me I needed to make $1 million, but that's not really what I wanted. I didn't want $1 million. I wanted my life to actually look like I could maybe work 15 hours a week and make the 6-figure salary I want. That was more attractive to me. So I started there and then worked my way back. So the obstacles that would get in the way of that was that mindset. So getting that out of the way was really helpful. Letting go. So being able to delegate, bring people on, make the investment to have people work for you. And then also realizing that there was a time in my life where you turn the burner up and you operate at a little bit higher capacity, and you turn the burner down and you kind of simmer for a while, because I've had 4 kids. So there's been maternity leaves in there and different levels of energy, different things going on in my personal life. So kind of the other roadblock being that my kids weren't really the roadblock, but me sort of realizing that there were times in my life where just things weren't going to happen as fast or maybe as much as I would want them to. And that was okay. Right now, I'm getting into this season where we start in the fall, where my youngest will be in school full time. That's like a whole new world for me. I haven't had that for 10 years. I've been doing everything with at least one small child somewhere in the house. So at some point during the day. And so, it's kind of that, oh, right, okay, this is a different season, and what will that schedule look like, and where do I want my goals to be? So to me, those were my hurdles. They were all me. It was me.
How old is the oldest and how old is the youngest now?
The oldest is 11 and the youngest is 3. So I'm going to have the 3 in preschool. She turns 4 when school starts, and that will be a big change.
What is maybe your top 1 or 2 tips? So I know you've kind of transitioned from agency work into more training, but if somebody wants to go along that path, let's say, what are maybe some top 1 or 2 tips for somebody? You could say for yourself 10 years ago, or just for somebody who's coming up behind you.
Number 1, be a good listener. You want to, if you're creating training, you want to create training that people need. And the best way to do that is to get into circles and listen, do less talking and more listening. I think I see a lot of people come out with ideas and they'll say, no one's doing this. And yet, I'll know a couple of people who are doing it, and that's not a bad thing, but you have to do your research and see what people are doing, and then be humble enough to say, okay, someone is doing that. Can I do it better? Is there a conversation that's not being had that I need to have? So that's the first tip. Definitely, be a good listener, do your research. Second is to just not be afraid to build slowly. I think there is a lot of pressure around, you have to get to market now, get to market before someone else gets to market. And that actually does the opposite for people. It actually has them give up, because building a course, building training, building an audience takes time. And so since it's not happening quickly, people just kind of give up and they find something else that's making revenue, and then they pivot towards that. So it does take time. Don't be discouraged by it. And timing, Sure, it is everything, but also having a business that has been well built and that will last, not just like 6 months or a year, but that will last and produce revenue. And you're having a conversation everybody wants to have. That's going to be more important over time. So just not to buckle under that assumption that you have to rush and get it off. Like basically, that you're building the runway as the plane takes off. As motivating as that can be, sometimes it's not the best method to building a lasting company, a lasting program.
Yeah, definitely. If a business, especially if it's recurring revenue, like it has so much value that it's worth putting, more time into creating it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, looking into the future a little bit, if you can reveal or if you can say, what are some of your latest or future projects you have going on? So I know you have your retreat, but any new events, projects, products, anything on the horizon for you?
Yes, I am. I kind of mentioned it briefly, and I haven't really officially announced it, but I have come alongside with GoDaddy to help them build out a lot of some really cool training that will be coming. I'm really excited about that because I love the idea of putting some really great training out there that's accessible to everybody and free and helps the community grow. So I'm excited about that. Partnered with them, and I'll announce all of that soon, depending on when people are watching this video. So they're really great people over there. We're doing some really cool stuff regarding training. I have written a book for around this concept of revenue and recurring revenue. It is completed. It is sitting on my drive. I literally just have to take some time to sit out, edit it, and publish it, and it will go out. So it's around recurring revenue, around kind of building those relationships. So I need to put it out. I'm excited about that. And yeah, the recurring revenue retreat, that's kind of chugging along, and we'll have that in November here of 2022. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now and juggling and enjoying the ride.
Last question or two here. So first of all, thanks for joining. I know I kind of caught you when you were on vacation at first. So a little bit just for fun. I think you said you went to Spain. Is that the only country you went to? And how was that vacation that you just got back from?
Yes, for a long time now, my husband and I have been waiting for that opportunity where we could take the kids to another country. And then with the littlest one finally being 3, we're like, I think we're going to do it. And we went to the northern part of Spain in Cantabria. It was absolutely beautiful. It was farmland by the ocean. It was amazing. So that was really fun. And it's different. It's not really a vacation when you still have your children. You're just kind of taking care of them in a new place. But we certainly had great time going all the way around. And, I didn't work for 3 weeks, that was the cool thing about having recurring revenue and running your own business, just didn't work, had 3 weeks off. It was wonderful. And that was the dream, being able to do that with a family. So it was a nice checkbox of being like, we got here, we could do this. And it was a big accomplishment in my work life and in my family life. So.
Oh, nice. How fun. Do you guys speak Spanish, or was it all Catalan there? Was it all Catalan there anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. We knew how to order food and we knew how to use our Google Translate, but we came back really excited to improve our Spanish. So hopefully this will become a regular thing. Everyone was very nice and patient with us as we butchered our way through speaking Spanish. And up where we were, it wasn't like a tourist, it wasn't like Madrid or Barcelona where you had people speaking English like they, it was out in the country. So we really had to try really hard, and it was funny at times, but we got through, and we've come back. We're set to improve our Spanish.
Maybe the most important question is, where can people find you, follow you? Where should people go to learn more about you?
Okay, great. So if someone has a web agency or they're interested in creating recurring revenue in that agency, you can find a whole bunch of stuff about that at wpcaremarket.com. There's courses and training. There's a pro directory if you want to get connected because you provide website care to business owners. If you're interested about the recurring revenue retreat, r3.live is a website for that. We still have some open slots for November. And then if you just want to know more about the other crazy projects that I do on the side, KristinaRomero.com is where you go for that. Facebook, there's a website care pros Facebook group. with WP Care Market. So you should find it and come join, have a conversation. We talk about all different kinds of recurring revenue and website care and stuff like that.
Well, again, I definitely appreciate you taking the time here and dropping all of those huge golden nuggets all about agency and business and all of that good stuff.
Well, thanks, Alan. I appreciate you having me on. This was great stuff to talk about. I love talking about this, and I hope people, take away something that helps them move forward and grow their business.
So, of course, all of those links will be below. So definitely follow her, join those groups, join her training and all of that good stuff. So thanks again for joining, Kristina. I'll let you know when this drops later on. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Alan.